Chain.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Off the Chain with your host Amel Nene, and today we have a superstar with us. It's Cagatay Civici, CEO of Primetech. All right, hi Cagatay, you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, thanks Amel for having me. Glad to be on the show. My name is Cagatay Civici. I am the founder of Primetech, and I've been working on the UI technologies for close to 20 years now. Most of the time I work with Java, and I see myself as a Java developer, although I mostly do JavaScript these days because of the trends lately. But probably Java community know me from the Primefaces, which is a user interface suite for Java Surfaces. And then we moved on to other technologies like Angular for Prime NG, and for React we did Prime View, Prime React, and we also lately have done a Prime View, which is, I mean, all of these 4 projects are very active and under development. So what I do is almost always on the UI layer and the front end, although I try to stay up to date, or keep up to date with the backend technologies as well. But my passion is on the UI layer since the college.
So you're a Java champion. It's not hard when we Google your name. The first thing we see is that a Java champion. Don't tell us what that means.
Yeah, Java champions are people who I think it's a title given by Oracle. It's a program. And in my case, I mean, it's usually the people who contribute to the Java ecosystem. So my contribution was with Primefaces, of course, and I think that Primefaces really helped Java Surfaces stay up to date and still be relevant. And due to my contributions, I think a Java champion needs to do a proposal. And once it's approved, and then you become a champion. And another Java champion, Murat Yener from, people know him in the Android community a lot, and Mert Çalışkan as well. So they have proposed me as a candidate, and then I just got approved. So it's great to be getting this title, and I'm glad that I had the chance to contribute to the Java ecosystem as much as I can.
Okay, I mean that sounds really great. Getting the recognition from the ecosystem as well. And you're a JSF expert. You're part of the JSF expert group, so you're a member. Are you still a member?
Yeah. I was. Before it moved to Jakarta, I was a member of the expert group, which was responsible for creating the specification and doing proof of concept implementations. So I contributed a couple of ideas in the Primefaces back to the standard. Like, I don't remember exactly. It's been a long time. So, like error messages and things like that. Small things, but I had the chance to contribute to the core as well. Because in Primefaces, we are very flexible. We can do things, implement features very fast. But JSF specification, it moves slowly. So most of the time, the most popular stuff from the libraries gets picked up in this specification as well.
Yes, I mean, you mentioned the change from Oracle to Jakarta EE, right?
Yeah.
Does that mean that JSF will be moving over to Jakarta EE too?
Yeah. I think Aryan Teams is leading now the JSF specification. Who is one of the top-notch guys in the ecosystem. And yeah, I mean, currently, I mean, all the package renaming, moving things are, being worked on. And I think the future, it's a good move for JSF because it was quite slow back in the Oracle days. Maybe 3 years for a new version, and once you start working on features, the JavaScript frameworks were getting some, it's just too fast in what happens in the UI layers, too fast, and JSF was not able to catch up, especially with its server-side driven architecture. So hopefully with the Jakarta movement, it will be more agile and rapid.
Mm-hmm. So I guess one of the questions that everybody's been asking, especially Java developers, is there any feature for Java on the front end? And by front end, I mean on the web front end. Is there any feature for Java there?
Yeah, I mean, currently things are interesting. The interest seems to be shifted to the JavaScript libraries. That's what I see as well, because I was in Java and various conferences. I was doing a lot of conferences like in the past few years, and usually the room was full. It's like many people joining in, but after some time, I realized that not many people have started to join my talks, because I always talk about JSF. And then I check other rooms, what's going on, and then I see that the interest seems to be shifting to other technologies, and I talk to the developers and to see what they're doing. Because at PrimeTech, we are a UI component library vendor. We have to invest in new technologies to keep to invest and for the business side of things. And so I'm interested in what people are using. So I always talk to the developers, what they're using, are they happy with it? So what I see, like a couple of years ago, the movement has shifted to JavaScript. But from what I see, because we had rich spaces and nice spaces back in the day, and now I don't think they are being maintained right now, and Primefaces is actively being maintained by us. So when I check out the download numbers, the statistical side of things with the graphs, the Primefaces downloads are interestingly increasing. It's not like a giant increase like Rocket. It's not like it's the hottest technology out there, but it's not going down, which is interesting. And when I see that the charts, there's a slight increase as well. One of the reasons is that, and many of our clients, the users, who like to, who doesn't care about the latest trends, or who want something stable that works and looks good and works, and which does the job. And many of the JSF users are using it behind the scenes, not for client facing, like on the web. It's mostly for internet web pages, for the internal applications of the companies, who doesn't have like thousands of users. Just the developers need something quick. They need to build forms. It's more like form and data driven, and JSF really does its job there. It's not like because it's stateful and it renders stuff on server side. It has advantages and disadvantages, but I mean it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean that's what I see. And if it keeps up to date, I mean from our side, what we can do at the Primefaces side, we can make it look good, because we work on the UI layer, and the shift was on the client side to JavaScript. And the JavaScript guys need to do some server-side rendering as well because of the SEO and other stuff. And JSF, in JSF, you don't have those kind of problems. You win some, you lose some. And now I'm seeing interesting technologies like the Blazor, like, for example, the Microsoft's Blazor, which is currently a server-side framework. I think I'm just reading about it these days, nowadays. So it works on the Webassembly. So maybe if JSF, because .NET had web forms, which was a counterpart of JSF. Now .NET is working on something like the Blazor, and if the Java ecosystem can come up with like a Blazor kind of thing that works, that integrates with the modern stuff, that will be very interesting. And I'm just working on. I'm just thinking about ideas, how to bring the ideas of JSF to modernize and take advantage of server-side rendering and server-side APIs, so that you don't have to write your business logic and the UI logic in different places. You just run it because the JSF can do it, because it's just Java everywhere. So it will be interesting to see how, if it can evolve, that would be great. To catch up the modern trends.
Yes, you did mention something there about catching up with model trends. And one thing has still been pushed there, I don't know if you picked up at the moment, is micro front ends. Okay, so
Yeah,
with the idea of micro front ends, I mean, in Java, I like to compare it to the days of portlets.
yeah. It was done like years ago, so by portlets.
And now they're trying to push this micro front end by using JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so using JavaScript and the likes, right? So how can Java really JSF Java? I know that JSP has been deprecated now, so it's going to be JSF mostly, right? How can they adapt to something like a macro front end if you're trying to modernize the framework, right? A lot of things server side.
Yeah. I think that it was kind of done back in the day with the portals, and which are still quite used as far as I know. Portals architectures suit really well to the idea of the front-end frameworks, but due to the server-side rendering and all the state thing, I would like to see JSF going stateless first, so that we don't need to worry about state and all these, the famous Vue expired exception. One thing I'd like to see an option, because it should be stateless to scale really well. So if there's an option to make it stateless, that would be great. And WebAssembly is quite interesting because Blazor is integrating WebAssembly. If the idea that the application runs in WebAssembly, so that would be interesting to translate the code to be something that runs with WebAssembly, and it will be interesting to make it integrated with other technologies like web components, with the browser and DOM APIs, and that's the time when it will be. That's my vision of modernizing JSF. You write some Java code, but it runs on the. It's not like Google Web Toolkit. It's not like a compilation at build time, but something like taking advantage of WebAssembly and things like that. So I had some ideas, but I could never play with it yet. But when I had the time, I planned to implement like a proof of concept to have on integrating some Java code, assembly, and things like that. So JSF and Java ecosystem can do it because the Microsoft world is like doing that with Blazor.
Okay.
There's an innovation going on, but that would be really interesting.
Yeah, so that's the next thing, right? WebAssembly, right?
Yeah.
What exactly is WebAssembly?
It's,
to a novice, to someone who doesn't build a career, front end, come across WebAssembly, they're promising sense speed as native application, so almost like having native application running in the browser. But what exactly is WebAssembly?
WebAssembly is like it's like a container. As far as I know, it's a new type of coding that can run in modern web browsers. Likely, if you've done C and C# programming, it's like a low-level assembly language. And if you're done with, and it's very fast. The idea of, when you write assembly code, it runs very fast. And assuming that the ability to run really, performant applications on the web is quite interesting. And the idea is that it can work alongside JavaScript so that you can take advantage of JavaScript APIs like JavaScript integration, like web components and other things. That's the idea. So as far as I know, I haven't played with the WebAssembly. I couldn't get my hands dirty with WebAssembly yet, but I had some ideas on with some Java integration if possible. So, the idea is that you write your code, and the idea is that it runs in the WebAssembly, but the browser needs to support it. Yeah, the idea is a preference, because if you check out the latest things, you see that when there's too much JavaScript, you see that page is slowing down, the animations are slowing down, and things like that. So that would be, that seems like if it gets accepted, that will be the next big thing, actually.
Yes, I saw some projects, some unrelated to JSF around Java FX, where they are trying to deploy some of the Java FX to WebAssembly. I think it's kind of really POC level at the moment, right? Just like in a lot of other WebAssembly projects at the moment, it's really proof of concept level, right? But so WebAssembly will be, as you mentioned, running a container in the web browser. So your application running through a container in the browser, and JSF, which is very server-side. Now try to bring that up to modernize it in a way that it can be run in the container in the browser. It's not a small feat, because it's all server-side based. And most of the frameworks today, PrimeNG is all runs in the browser, JavaScript based.
Yeah.
Right. So what are some of the challenges you can see, really?
Yeah, I'm not sure. JSF was designed in 2011, back in the day, like 20 years ago. I mean, and you try to make it run in a thing like WebAssembly, that would be it doesn't sound like the most easy thing. But maybe like the Blazor, maybe Jakarta can come up with something like a new technology to to do something like a new web framework, maybe that runs in WebAssembly instead of because there was a work. I'm not sure the state of there was an MVC framework idea. I'm not sure the state of it. The Java MVC framework. Maybe it will be in Jakarta. I don't follow the latest state of the MVC, but I'm not sure. Maybe a new technology instead of trying to port JSF. Maybe getting the ideas from JSF and coming up with a new thing for Jakarta is to that runs in the WebAssembly. That's designed for the latest technologies like WebAssembly. That would be interesting.
Yes,
it's kind of hard. Yeah.
One of the problems I see with the JavaScript world, right? They have too many frameworks. So too many frameworks in the Java world, and that's due to the lack of standardization. So you have some standards, just ECM script, which is the standard, but then you have Angular, React, Vue, and a billion other frameworks, which probably do not interoperate, so they can't be connected. So interoperability is lost, all right? So they're always trying to reinvent with each other, and they're all great frameworks on their own. But sometimes the front-end developer has to almost learn 2 or 3, 4 frameworks, which takes a lot of work. And what I like with the JSPs and JSF world, you can tell what era I'm from, is that there was a standard in place, right? So if you want to do something, do it the JSF way, or you do the JSP way, or you could use the expression or language, the EL. But one of the worries is that what I see, maybe you could disagree with me, is that if going to Jakarta, we don't break standard, we don't create too many offshoots. I mean, you have a macro profile, we have Jakarta, eventually the same, right? Now, we're waiting for them to combine at some point, but nothing stops them from creating another offshoot to say, okay, we all know how difficult authentication is in Java. So someone else will say, okay, we will focus on authentication, all right? And someone will say, okay, so, what's your opinion around standardizing some of the frameworks, all right, even for the JavaScript world as well, right? Instead of having so many different frameworks, one to work together. I mean, one thing that you mentioned earlier is with our standards, speed is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, there are too many options, and developers kind of pick sides from what I've seen, there's a React developers and Angular developers, Vue developers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, speed is kind of important. From what I've seen from our side, we as PrimeTech, we develop with all these. I personally work with all these new technologies like Angular from day to day with React. For example, these days I'm working on Vue. Next week I have to switch to Angular to start creating the Prime 10 release. Then probably the next day I will move on to React for Prime React 5. And then for Angular, what I've seen that there's a new release every 6 months, so which usually breaks things. And for end users, it's not really a big problem, but for library authors like us, it's quite a big deal. Like this new Ivy rendering engine in the Angular, which we have to support. That's a big task if you're maintaining the library. For React, we had some rewrite. We had to do some rewrites as well because they deprecated in some lifecycle methods, and they introduced the hooks. And for Vue, there hasn't been much change. It's quite stable, but the Vue 3 will be up soon with new composition API. There is the Svelte, the older library, Ember Knockout, Stencil for web components. So the idea is that, the idea is that maybe the web components can be the way to standardize the UI layer because it's currently supported in major browsers. So that you write your tables and tab views and buttons just once with web components, and then you can distribute them to your Angular, React, and Vue projects. So the core elements of the UI is web components, and then you can reuse them. So that would be a handy way if your teams work with different technologies. That would be very useful. But yeah, right now, if another JavaScript library becomes popular, I don't know personally what I would do. Maintaining all these 4 libraries, it's a big task for us. If there's another one, I'm just praying that, I'm just please, no more libraries. Just this 4 is enough. But people are saying, when are you going to create a library for JavaFX? When are you going to create a library for components? When is the Blazor version coming out? And so that's the idea is that probably from our side, I'm interested in web components. So instead of creating the same library over and over again, we'll do it one last time with web components, and whenever a new technology comes up, we can make it, the adapters, and make it available to it. Yeah, but it's evolving really, really fast compared to JSF.
Yes. Well, as you mentioned, JSF on the Oracle, and now, all they're doing at the moment, moving it to Jakarta, is just renaming of packages, right? I know it's not as simple as I make it sound now, but we haven't seen any new feature being added. So some other project that I've been looking into, I'm not sure if you come across things like Quarkus. So Quarkus is a project from sponsored by Red Hat, and so Quarkus is introducing its own web framework. Okay, so they will not be supporting JSF. The reason hasn't really been shared with anyone yet. I know that someone did ask in the forum, and they just said, no, we're not supporting it, right? Which is kind of a shame because they're supporting, as I mentioned earlier, micro profile, right? So the micro profile compatible, and does that mean that they're fully Jakarta EE compatible? Because if it's fully Jakarta EE compatible, then you should be supporting JSF. I'm assuming that wrong.
Our Primeface team member Thomas Andrashko, I think he's done some work with Quarks, and he had posted some blogs and that how to use JSF on the Quarkus, and I think it's supported, but I haven't played with it. So
okay, so probably supported, but they haven't made an official.
Probably.
Okay,
probably.
Then that's a better thing, right? But what do you see? You mentioned WebAssembly. You mentioned web components. All right. JSF hopefully moving to a stateless, more modernized framework. So that we don't have any more view expired. Right.
Yeah.
So and web component being something that you see as a way to standardize all those different applications. But what about creating native application? When I first started using JSF had libraries to create mobile application. So mobile web. I think they were using jQuery mobile at the time. Right. Now I don't see that library being there anymore. Maybe because it's more.
No, it's gone. Like jQuery itself. Yeah, it's gone.
So now everything is more responsive anyway. So you don't really need any separate library just to have mobile view on. So when you have a distributed team, right? So people want to be able to work on the same application, right? Using GitHub, you have all those collaborators. JSF, you could create components, right? So different teams could work on those components. But how do we break JSF to be something more component-based, like web component? Right. What's your idea around that? How can we break JSF or web component compatible?
Yeah, JSF always had some cool stuff. For example, the renderers, so that you can create, you write the Java code, but the renderers, for example, one renderer just renders with, regular HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Another renderer just renders web components. Another renderer just renders some stuff, maybe for Webassembly or maybe for, other UI. There was even ideas on Adobe Flex. If you're older, listeners will remember that there's some things so different renderers for different technologies. So that might work. Also, JSF had the idea of, for example, creating, having multiple templates. I'm not sure if you heard of it. So that, for example, with the latest technology like Angular, React, Vue, or JavaScript, you have like one template. You have a single-site application with the router menu on the left, top or on the top, and the center of the page changes. But with JSF, you can just, the nice thing about JSF is that you can even switch templates. So you put your templates in one folder, and whole your application can switch from one template to another template, so that one is an RTL template, one is different with different colors. So I've not seen anything like this in the let's say the modern world. So JSF has some cool ideas that are not really, which I can say taken advantage of. But for JSF, it would be, I'm not sure if the community will. A lot of people probably, a lot of developers say that the time of JSF is over. So if you do something like, okay, JSF now supports web components, JSF does this, I'm not sure if it's convinced. It will be hard to convince people to get back to JSF. Maybe people had some, bad experiences with it, because JSF is an interesting technology. When I post something on Twitter, I see people bad JSF. It's 2020. Who is doing JSF right now? It's like.
Well, I'll put my hand up. We're still doing some JSF stuff, but we
also
other stuff.
And I got some comments saying that JSF is the best thing, and they just love working on it. So it's a bit confusing. It's like there are haters and there are lovers, and no one in between. You either hate it or love it. So, but I also see that in the latest trends as well. There's a JavaScript developer survey, and the people ask many developers saying, if you use React, will you use it again, or just advise and your friends using it again? Lots of people say yes. For Vue, people said, okay, it was good and we will use it again. But for Angular, the experience was kind of bad. And according to the survey, there are some people who do not consider using Angular for their second project or future project, and they don't recommend it for the people. So I see that JSF has the same thing. If you love it, you just recommend it, and if you don't love it, and I would say there are people who hate it. There are people who make mocking websites to mock it. what is it? I hate JSF or something like that. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, I hate JSF.com. So there's
We
some
had some
interesting.
experience. We had some more experience with all the JSF stuff. We so we had this project, and the front end developer was not a Java guy, right? So it's purely JavaScript and other frameworks. So we told him, okay, you know what, your form has to be, oh, your HTML has to be XHTML. Don't ask me why. Why do you need to
Yeah,
have XHTML? And then we have to tell him, why don't you close all your elements? They're always, just
yeah,
close the XML element. So that became
yeah.
another fight, all right? Just for them to get through that because they're not used to that. And so, and that's what the problem is, right? With our Java server-side view technology, right?
Yeah.
Because you need it to be in a strict way. But looking at it, if you look at what React is doing, right? So the React also have to declare, have to have some namespace, just like
Yeah,
JSF
it's
namespace. I think it's very
yeah,
similar,
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
right?
it's kind of a pain. I mean, I have to look up how to because they have a different casing for the HTML attributes. I mean, it gives an error, but I always when I'm designing the API, I need to provide a property name to the component. I always check out what's the corresponding name. For example, class becomes class name. In JSF, we had style class. So
Yes.
different things like React has its own. It's very opinionated. I think like
Mm-hmm.
Angular.
But all those technologies together, right? And that's what Prime Tech specializes in, front end based technologies. But what other thing do you do at Prime Tech?
Uh, yeah, working with colors, let's say, designing things like our business model depends on the open source UI libraries where the components are free to use, even complex stuff like data tables and things. But we work on premium templates and premium design. So we do a lot of design. Sometimes, like I feel like a design agency because most of the time I work with CSS and colors. And I was very backend. I was a hardcore Java developer with doing
Mm-hmm.
transactions and server side stuff, EJBs. Now I'm trying to pick the best blue tone, and spend my 1 hour on picking the best blue color for the template and things like that. The world changes, and I enjoy designing. I work with design tools, trying to create logos and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's the business part of it because I mean, if you look at what we've done at JSF is okay, it's a old technology, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've just scanned it. I think we did a pretty good job, and it looks modern. So when people look at the technologies like Angular, React, and Vue, and they come to the Primefaces website and the demos, it doesn't look really old. So they don't shy away from. They don't say, okay. And the new developers, the juniors. I mean, I'm like 40 years old, close to 40 years old, and I've been doing this for 20 years. So if you look at
Mm-hmm.
the UI 20 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
if I check my work 20 years ago, the tables and the color, it really looks old. But what we try to do is that we try to make modernized as that's easy to do on the CSS and colors, and because there's no
Mm-hmm.
technology, it's just there. So that's something we're working on to make it look modern, although the back end is like not really. So it's like, getting a plastic surgeon. I feel like, making JSF look very modern, young, let's say. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I've been doing a lot of design things. I had some passion for design. I work design tools, creating logos and drawing UI, and also implementing things as well. I work with most with JavaScript. At our company, our team is distributed. There are some people who work with React, Vue, Angular. It's quite getting very hard to find a JSF developer these days because the students and the junior developers they're usually what they see is that in the jobs that they can find, it's usually involves newer technologies. So it's really hard to find JSF developer experience. So that what we do is that
one of the problems for that, I think sometimes it's not technology driven, it's more marketing driven.
Of course, yeah.
So a lot of time the technology is there, and I mean JSF React, Vue. How do you make it? How do you choose which one to use if it's not because of marketing? All right.
Yeah. I mean,
the one with the shiniest thing, yep, that's used most of the time. No.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the, when the Google is working on how pushing the Flutter, and they're really pushing their new tech, the conferences, there are full-time people working on marketing, developer relations, developer advocates, and things like that. And yeah, it's the marketing. Even if the technology is really, even if it sucks, if the marketing is really good, and people will use it. But yeah, overall, what I can say is that the JSF is not going anywhere. So it might be surprising that download numbers are still going up, although slightly. And from our side, for example, the Primefaces is the most popular one of what we did. It's like more than 20 million downloads. But the JSF, thank you. For example, JSF Primefaces gets like 1 million downloads per year, whereas the Primefaces,
okay.
I mean, if you that's still a big number if you consider that it's the 1 million downloads, and that includes like 700,000 of them like the major versions and the 300,000 like the minor versions, and of course, the Primefaces gets more downloads, but from the business side of the things, Primefaces is still very important for us. For example, that's interesting. We have this thing called commercial support services called Primefaces Pro, Primefaces Pro. What I've seen is that the Java developers, they have more interest in getting commercial support instead of the front-end developers. What I see that if people work with Angular, React, JavaScript stuff, they kind of, just kind of do things and they can find with their own way. So support is not really the vital thing for them. So they're more interested in the premium templates so far. So they purchase these commercial ones. But on the JSF side, we had more interest in the pro services, and because they need more support with the technology. And if you're using Primefaces or JSF, it means that you don't, maybe you're not really front-end developer, and so you just want to do some quick UIs with it. And if you but on the front side, people who work with Angular, React, and Vue have some knowledge on how things work on the front end. So that's an interesting, but the profiles of the developers and the companies are really different. So it's like a tradition. Maybe some company doesn't want to move on to the the latest JavaScript trends. I know people who are scared of all the changes. They say we have to rewrite our UI layer every 6 months and things like that, because Angular, switch from Angular 1 to Angular 2 was a big lesson for many companies because it was a new technology. And
that's quite interesting. The different perspective of who goes just for downloading the libraries, and who actually decide to, with Java we have a lot of complexity, right? And sometimes we don't want to be bogged around, figuring out how to do things. If you have our support, commercial support somewhere, it will save you some time, right? And you can focus on the next component or the next functionality that you want to write, right? Maybe you write in your the services, and that's the next one, right? Because if you're writing services and with Angular, you can deploy your front end service, right? So this is just the front end making some calls to a back end service somewhere, and they can be deployed separately. Right? So if you use microservices or as an architecture, then you can see that, okay, yes, I've deployed my front end and I deployed the back end was developed by different teams and they get deployed. With Java, it's usually the same team, right? So and if you try and have a microservice with a JSF application where you already have a Java beans, right, and there's a chance that your Java beans can probably connect to the database, some people may want to take a shortcut. When they take a shortcut, they may encounter complexities where they don't want to have to worry about the actual XHTML part of things.
Yeah.
Right. So I see why they would go for commercial. I'm probably one of those person that would do the same thing. I would just, you know what, let's just get some professional commercial support there, and I just focus on how to actually make a backend or interoperability or something else, right? But that's a very nice chat. I don't want to take too much of your time now. Chat, and I really enjoyed that chat. Right, I could stay here to talk another 2-3 hours. Right.
Yeah.
So is there anything that we should look at? I saw one of your tweets saying that you should not work on a dark film in daytime.
Yeah. It's really hard. Never again.
All right. So is there anything that we should look forward to coming from PrimeTech?
Yeah, these days, I mean, we are locked down, right? So during the lockdown, I had some time to see things from the user's point of view. Lately, I checked I decided that some CSS framework characteristics to the libraries, like form layouts, badges, because when I look at the CSS frameworks, I come from a Java background with a lot of UI complexity, which needs to have a data table, which should be resizable, which should be scrollable with virtual scrolling, and it should be sortable and filterable. But when I look at a CSS library, which is popular, and I check out their list of components, I see badge, button, and simple things like that. And I see the download numbers, which are really popular. Sometimes lately I realized that we kind of miss the simple things and try to focus on the complex stuff. So lately I've been adding some simple but useful things like form layouts so that you can just create your forms easily. We add these components, but not the easy way to arrange them on the page. We have simple stuff like badges, alerts, and I'm rewriting the CSS architecture because believe it or not, all the Prime View, Prime React, and the Prime NG, their CSS actually is being originated from Primefaces, and the Primefaces CSS is like 10 years old, which is using the older techniques of layouts and things. But the CSS has been improved lately, so for the even Primeface as well. We are, let's say, renovating the things. The next week, we will release the first version of this, let's say, renovation with Prime View.
Okay.
And then Prime React and Prime NG will be renovated as well. It will be, and also, our business model depends on premium teams, but I also decided to make the free teams really look good. So I'm sure our users will love it, the community will love it. And we've created 2 new themes, which look really professional and modern looking, and it will be free. So, we are trying to modernize and catch up with the latest trends. A lot of things are going to happen, and all of them will be, most of them will be open source and free so that we can contribute to the community. So we are really busy, and this lockdown really helped us to, look ourselves and to see what we are doing good and what we are doing, not that good. So that a lot of things are coming up from the Prime phase.
Well, that sounds really great. And one of my own personal requests is probably if we are from Primeface fully compatible with Bootstrap. Right. A lot of our front end is Bootstrap, so that'd be something really good if they're fully compatible. I don't know how much work that is. You mentioned that the techniques that you're using are probably not compatible because they're a decade old now. But
the latest Primefaces will do a better job because back in the day Primefaces is content box based, so that width of an HTML element consists of width, the border, and margin. But the Bootstrap was a newer technology back even in the first versions. They used box sizing. So when we started doing Primefaces and web, box sizing was not really, believe it or not, was not really widely supported. So lately we have switched all the Primeface components to box sizing as well, so that they can work with the Bootstrap. Because the problem was when you had Bootstrap to a Primeface project, the Primeface stuff was broken because of the CSS was broken. Because of this latest CSS renovation things, Primefaces as well will be really compatible with Bootstrap. Even with their, even the latest version, Primefaces 8 would be a better job there. So yeah, we are trying to make sure that the components are really compatible with CSS frameworks. But lately, as I mentioned, I'm trying to add CSS framework characteristics to the library as well, so that maybe you will realize that do we really need Bootstrap because the Prime has this stuff already.
Wow, looking forward to the latest addition to our Primeface. Hopefully Primeface 9, if not Primeface 10. All right.
Yeah, we'll see about it.
It was really great chatting with you, Chatter.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice for coming to Off the Chain. And hopefully we speak to you again in the future.
Yeah, hopefully.
Around, around maybe the more JavaScript framework.
Sure.
And some of the techniques that you want to share with us.
Yeah.
So thank you, and thanks everyone for listening. This is your host Ahmed Nene, and thanks for joining us Off the Chain. Until then, see you next time. Stay safe.